Forget everything you think you know about the history of our planet. The fossils we find in the dirt are just the leftovers of a much darker reality. While the dinosaurs on land were fighting for scraps, the ocean was engineering gods. These are the 10 largest aquatic entities to ever claim sovereignty over the Earth. If you think extinction was a tragedy, you are wrong. It was a desperate mercy. If these things still patrolled our coasts, human civilization would have never started. Entity 10. The Helicoprion, the Sawtooth anomaly. Nature usually follows a symmetry that makes sense to the human eye. But 290 million years ago, the Permian Ocean produced a biological glitch. The Helicoprion was a shark-like predator that carried a nightmare in its lower jaw. Instead of losing teeth, it grew them in a permanent circular spiral. It was a buzzsaw made of serrated ivory and raw predatory malice. This was not a tool for eating. It was a tool for systematic dismantling. When the Helicoprion attacked, it didn't just bite its prey into pieces. It unrolled its spiral jaw to saw through the soft bodies of everything it touched. Imagine the sound of a bone saw operating in total underwater darkness. It is the sound of an ocean that stopped caring about evolution and started caring about efficiency. It reached lengths of 12 meters, making it a ghost of the prehistoric reefs. It is a reminder that in the deep, geometry is used for killing. Entity 9. The Dunkleosteus, the ironclad guillotine. Before the era of scales and skin, there was the era of heavy armor. The Dunkleosteus was a 10-meter nightmare encased in thick, impenetrable bony plates. It didn't have teeth in the traditional sense of any animal we know today. It had razor-sharp bony ridges that sharpened themselves every time it closed its mouth. This creature possessed a bite force of over 6,000 newtons in a single snap. That is enough power to crush a modern diving bell like a soda can. But the most disturbing part of its biology was its incredible speed. It could open its massive jaws in 1/50th of a second, creating a vacuum. You wouldn't even feel the bite before being sucked into its throat. You would simply find yourself inside a metal room of bone and acid. It was the ocean's first attempt at a biological tank, and it was perfect. It didn't hunt its prey, simply erased it from the water column. Entity 8. The Elasmosaurus, the invisible harpoon. The Elasmosaurus is the source of every sea serpent myth in human history. But the reality of this creature is much worse than any folklore. It possessed a neck that was 8 meters long, half of its entire body. From the perspective of a fish, the Elasmosaurus was practically invisible. Its massive body stayed hidden in the dark, murky depths of the sea, while its small, snake-like head drifted upward toward the light and the prey. It didn't chase its victims. It waited for life to pass by in silence. Then it struck like a silent harpoon fired from the shadows of the abyss. By the time the prey realized there was a predator, the teeth were locked. It was a masterpiece of camouflage, patience, and absolute cold-blooded murder. A ghost with a neck that moved like a cobra under the waves. It proves that the ocean doesn't need to be fast to be deadly. Entity 7. The Xiphactinus, the gluttonous void. In the world of biology, there is a term called the greed of the abyss. No creature embodied this more than the Xiphactinus, a 6-meter demon-possessed bulldog. It was a predatory fish capable of swallowing prey half its own size whole. We have found fossils of Xiphactinus with entire undigested fish still inside them. It lived in a state of permanent, agonizing, and infinite hunger. It was a biological black hole that consumed everything in its proximity. It didn't kill for territory or for mating. It killed because it couldn't stop. Imagine a creature that is nothing but a stomach and a mouth patrolling the shallows. It is the embodiment of the ocean's insatiable and terrifying appetite. It was so aggressive that it often died from choking on its own massive meals. Even in death, it refused to let go of what it had claimed. It is the definition of a predator that has lost its mind to hunger. Entity 6. The Thalassophobia, the bone-crushing ram. As we descend deeper into the Cretaceous, we meet the ultimate bully. The Thalassophobia was a mosasaur that decided that teeth were simply not enough. It had a reinforced bony snout designed to act as a biological battering ram. It would ram its prey at high speeds to liquefy their internal organs instantly. It shattered the ribs of its rivals before the teeth even touched them. It was apex, highly aggressive, and possessed a terrifying level of intelligence. It had a second set of teeth in its throat to ensure no escape. Once the Thalassophobia gripped you, There was no physical way to get out alive. It didn't just hunt, it dominated every square inch of its territory. It is the reason the Cretaceous oceans were the most violent environment in history. It was the king of the shallows and the nightmare of the coastlines. If you saw its shadow, you were already dead.
Entity 5. The Basilosaurus. The Serpent King now. We move into the era where the monsters became mammals like us.
The Basilosaurus was a 21-meter-long whale that looked like a serpent. It had the intelligence of a mammal in the body of a dragon. Unlike modern whales, it had a brain designed for complex tactical hunting.
It didn't sing to its kin. It coordinated strikes on smaller, weaker whales. We have found skulls of juvenile whales with bite marks that match perfectly. The Basilosaurus crushed their skulls to get to the brains inside.
It was a warm-blooded, air-breathing killing machine that patrolled the ancient seas. It was the transition from reptile to whale, and it kept the worst traits. Imagine a predator that can think, plan, and wait for you to breathe. It is the bridge between the prehistoric past and our modern nightmares. It was the serpent that claimed the crown of the mammals. Entity 4. The Kronosaurus, the titan of the south, in the freezing dark waters of the south. The Kronosaurus reigned supreme. It was a pliosaur with a head the size of a small city car. Its teeth were as large as bananas and designed to tear through thick blubber. It lived in the twilight zone where the light of the sun begins to fail. It was built for raw power and didn't care about stealth or camouflage. It used a massive, explosive burst of speed from its 4 powerful flippers. It was the prehistoric equivalent of a nuclear-powered ambush predator. When the Kronosaurus was in the area, the entire water column went silent. Even the other large predators fled because the Kronosaurus left no leftovers. It weighed 11 tons and could move faster than a modern speedboat. It was the muscle of the ocean, a force of nature that couldn't be stopped. It was the predator that made the deep water feel like a trap. Entity 3. The Megalodon. The evolutionary ceiling. We cannot talk about the abyss without mentioning the Otodus Megalodon. But forget the movies you have seen. The reality is much more unsettling. This was a 20-meter shark that spent millions of years perfecting whale murder. It didn't just bite its prey, it targeted the flippers to paralyze them first. It was a surgical killer on a massive and terrifying biological scale. Its bite force was 182,000 newtons, the strongest of any animal in history. It lived in every single ocean on the planet for millions of years. It was the great filter of the sea, the ultimate test of survival. But the reason it went extinct is a warning to all of us today. The ocean became too cold, and its food moved to the unreachable poles. The Megalodon died because it was too large for its own success. It is proof that the bigger you are, the more the planet wants you dead. Entity 2. The Livyatan, the rival of God. If the Megalodon was the king, then the Livyatan was the god. Named after the biblical Leviathan, this was a sperm whale that hunted other whales. It had teeth 36 centimeters long, the largest functional teeth ever seen. Unlike modern sperm whales, the Livyatan used its jaws to rip chunks out of prey. It had a massive organ in its head that it used as a battering ram. Imagine 2 80-meter titans, the Megalodon and the Livyatan, clashing in the open. The water would have been red for miles around their titanic struggle. The Livyatan was the absolute peak of mammalian evolution and social intelligence. It was a social predator that could coordinate with others of its kind. It was the ultimate predator until something else rose from the deeper dark. It was the creature that made the Megalodon look like a common fish. It was the Leviathan of legend brought to terrifying life. Entity 1. The Mosasaurus Hoffmannii, the Eldritch sovereign. At the very top of the pyramid sits the real king of extinction. The Mosasaurus Hoffmannii was a 17-meter lizard that evolved to be perfect. It had the most advanced sensory system of its time in the ocean. It could sense vibrations in the water from miles away with total accuracy. It had a tongue like a snake to literally smell the water for blood. But its true power was its sheer, unrelenting, and psychopathic aggression. It didn't just eat for survival, it cleared the entire ocean of rivals. It was the reason the inland seas became known as Hell's Aquarium. When the asteroid hit the Earth, the Mosasaurus didn't die immediately. It was the last thing left in the water, patrolling a dying world. It is the face of extinction itself, the sovereign of the nightmare. It is the creature that even the abyss was afraid to hold. The final warning. The ocean never forgets. We look at these 10 entities, and we feel a false sense of relief. We tell ourselves that they are gone and that the water is safe. But look at the physics of the deep ocean, and you will see the truth. The pressure at 11,000 meters hasn't changed since the time of the dinosaurs. The darkness is exactly the same today as it was 60 million years ago. Nature does not throw away a perfect design. It only puts it in a drawer. When we send our sonars into the Mariana Trench and hear unknown sounds, when we see glitches on satellite feeds showing shapes the size of cities, we aren't seeing ghosts or mistakes. We're seeing the true owners. The 95% of the ocean that is unexplored is not an empty desert. It is a waiting room for the kings to reclaim their stolen throne. Extinction was not a permanent end. It was just a long sleep. The archive is never truly closed, and the tide is starting to rise. Stay out of the water because something is finally coming back up. The kings are waking up, and they are very, very hungry for us. The surface is just another hunting ground they haven't visited in a while. You are not the apex predator. You are just a temporary witness. Watch the water, because the next king is already beneath your feet.